Like every other artist in the world, I have many, many sketchbooks. And similarly to many other artists in the world, I have many unfinished sketchbooks. This is just what I could easily find in my bedroom at the time. I know there's more in our basement, and there's even more scattered around the house. Recently, though, I came to the conclusion that I only really need 2 until I finish them. One of them to be my ugly sketchbook where I draw whatever it is I want to draw, and it looks horrible. You can see that this is full of ideas and sketches and lines, and there are so many blank pages. And my second sketchbook is for finished drawings. It's what I would call curated. It's definitely more of a for show sketchbook. The reason behind this is really because of how we view sketchbooks as artists online these days. When you see sketchbook tours so frequently with people having these beautiful sketchbooks that have been very well planned and very well thought out, it gets a little demeaning to work in your own sketchbook. At least for me. It really strikes up the feeling of imposter syndrome and really makes you feel like maybe you're not a good artist because why does your sketchbook not look like that? And over time I realized that obviously my sketchbook did not look like that because I was treating it as a sketchbook. The people who make these beautiful curated sketchbooks that we see online in sketchbook tours are making art books, which is a completely separate thing. And beyond that, most of these sketchbooks people are uploading in sketchbook tours are part of their portfolio. Like for CalArts specifically, it requires you to submit an entire sketchbook as part of your portfolio. So obviously these sketchbooks are going to be magnanimous and beautiful and well curated. They have to be. It's part of their portfolio. And I have to say, I would have loved to do a sketchbook tour at any phase of my life. However, I never really finish sketchbooks, and even when I do, they don't look that good, so I've never felt comfortable creating any type of tour. And at some point recently in the past couple of months, it occurred to me that I could have a messy sketchbook and also a curated sketchbook. Because why do I have to fit everything in one? One sketchbook can primarily be for warming up, sketching, and practicing, whereas the other can be for more finalized pieces, so it looks nice. And with this, I can get the best of both worlds without having to sacrifice my desire to make shitty sketches. And this means that I'm not quote-unquote wasting any pages. A lot of us will buy these nice fancy sketchbooks and then feel bad about drawing in them, because if the drawing doesn't turn out perfect, we're just wasting nice paper. This sketchbook, my ugly sketchbook, if you want to call it that, is made of recycled paper. It was $5 and I got it on sale. And particularly because that price point was so low, I do not feel an ounce of bad when I'm using it. I could make the ugliest sketches in it. I do make the ugliest sketches in it. A lot of my warm-ups are just lines. Really ugly lines and circles to loosen up my wrist. And this is what I use this specific sketchbook for. I've essentially designated its entire purpose to be for making ugly work. Why? Because otherwise I wouldn't make it at all. It is my personal belief that personal growth in artwork requires some ugly sketching, and it requires behind-the-scenes disgusting work. And a large part of that is because you are pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, or you are trying things you wouldn't have otherwise done. And this is always going to look bad initially. And even once you perfect something, when you're first warming up or first getting into your drawing session, your wrist doesn't work properly. You just aren't prepared to use those muscles correctly. And it feels like a waste to just grab pieces of printer paper when I could use a sketchbook I already own. Why would I spend so much time drawing lines on some very nice printer paper, quite frankly, if I can do it in a sketchbook that I already have? I know every artist has at least one sketchbook with a bunch of blank pages that they haven't touched in 5 years. It is maybe a requirement of being an artist. We all have an abundance of sketchbooks. I know it's a meme and I know it's a joke people like to make, but it's because it's true. It's based in reality. But having an alternative to my slightly nicer sketchbook means that I always get the chance to create messy and unusable work. And to be perfectly clear, Canson is not the nicest brand in the world, it's not the fanciest paper in the world, but using a Canson mixed media sketchbook is still a step above using recycled paper. Because I'm used to using Canson mixed media paper, I can pretty typically make small paintings on it and it won't look bad. Since I'm practicing in my other sketchbook, my ugly sketchbook, in this nicer sketchbook, I get to put things that I find to be pretty. This is my pretty sketchbook, it's my for show sketchbook. The art in here is something I would be willing to show off. This is the sketchbook where, despite being a sketchbook, I get to curate it a little more. Here is where I put my nicer studies and my small paintings. Here is where I try new things out, but I'm still using references or cleaner lines or images that make it look better. This is work that I'm more likely to post or more likely to make a sketchbook tour out of. And obviously not every page is great, it's still at the end of the day a sketchbook and I'm still not that good at curating them. But for the quality of work I expect out of a sketchbook, this is a lot higher than I would normally do. If I wanted to give someone a better idea of my range and skills, I would hand them this because it shows off what I'm capable of doing better than my ugly sketchbook. I have said sketchbook so many times in this video, please don't make this a drinking game. But this all takes the pressure off of creating those art books off of my hands. I have one that is for creating beautiful art, and the other that is for creating ugly art. And it is my personal belief that ugly art is a necessity in order to improve and get better in your practice. I think we've all gotten a little too comfortable with the idea that every piece of artwork needs to be perfect, and that's impossible to obtain. Every piece of artwork is not going to be perfect. In fact, the majority of them are going to be ugly. That is part of the process, that is part of growing, that is part of making something new. We are never going to be perfect the first time. It takes so much practice, so much learning, so much history to get to the point where everything you make looks even remotely good. And even at that skill level, you still need to make ugly work. We've gotten so used to seeing beautiful sketchbooks and art books online that when we see these spreads, it makes us feel bad about our own skill level and own work quality. But these are extremely curated, and they're very much so for a purpose. Sketching and practicing does not necessarily have to be for the explicit purpose of looking beautiful. Content creators and even people who are just posting sketchbook tours that they want to show off are doing so because they want to show off. And to be clear, these people are blameless. There is nothing wrong with wanting to show off. When artists are only ever showing off their good work, though, we get a misrepresentation of what work looks like. And while no one should need to cater to other people online, when the only thing artists are posting is their very best, most pristine work, it gives a bad example for people coming after them. And that is no one's real responsibility. It is always a personal responsibility to take what you will from the internet. You don't have to believe everything, and you shouldn't believe everything you see and hear on the internet, obviously. But the sketchbooks that are posted online give off the impression that someone's work is always at a certain level of quality, usually very high, usually very curated. And that is simply not true. And I think it's safe to say that a lot of these artists online have multiple sketchbooks that they don't show off. They probably have one to do their ideation and planning and the other to put that ideation and planning into. So my word of advice is to keep two sketchbooks, one which you feel comfortable showing off to the world and the other where you can draw whatever you want in. So there's less pressure and less animosity towards yourself when you use it. After all, I know you have several sketchbooks sitting around your home. You might as well put those blank pages to good use.